So sit in cross legs, just have a little wriggle about, just make sure that you feel that you're evenly placed. Maybe just move the buttock flesh out to the side so that you're sitting evenly. So just feel that you have got a distinct sense of levelness at the hips. Just sit in the hips for a moment and just observe, do you feel slightly kind of out of balance, out of kilter, or are you genuinely level? So after a moment or two of just observing that position, maybe just readjust, just make sure that you feel determinedly level, and then hold onto your knees. Hold onto your knees so that you can lift up into the chest. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears, and then look down at the floor, look at something that doesn't move. So listen to the sound of the breath. Fill the lungs evenly on both sides. Empty the lungs evenly on both sides. Fill in the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. So when it's hot, like it is at the moment, the breath really becomes an essential element of our practice because it keeps us energized throughout the practice. And if you don't breathe evenly and deeply, if your breath is shallow and irregular, then you get tired. So just taking in indulgent inhalations. Allowing the breath to just release. Long, slow, deep, deliberate in-breaths. Long, slow, deep, deliberate out-breaths. And then bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together, lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. Taking a deep inhalation, and then with the following exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Consciously filling the lungs all the way to the top. And as long as there are no heart conditions or blood pressure issues, you can hold the breath at the top of the inhalation just for a second or two without any strain, just a gentle suspension of the in-breath, followed by a normal exhalation. So during that moment of kumbhaka, that moment of suspension of we inhale maybe we ingest maybe 4 or 5% of the oxygen that we inhale. So we absorb more oxygen to bring energy to the brain and to every cell of the body through the breath, specifically through the in-breath. So while we should never overhold that inhalation, we can just hold it gently, just for a second or two, just to engage in a deeper ingestion of oxygen. exhalation, just draw your chin down to meet your chest, normal breathing. So a moment in Jalandhara Bandha, the chin in connection with the chest. And just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, arms facing upwards, and then allow your eyes to gently open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, elevating the chest upwards. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs, shoulders across. Drawing the inhalation in through the nose, drawing the exhalation across. So staying with deep inhalations and using the subsequent exhalations to intensify the rotation of the spine. And then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left, using the energy of the exhalation to turn a little more deeply. And then come back to the center. Just come off your lift and down onto your knees. Just sit back on your heels. Sometimes it's good to just make a little bit of space in the back of your knee, just to encourage the back of the knee to really kind of open as you sit down. Just sit back on your shins. Just feel how the shins connect to the floor. If you've got a soft floor like I have, I've got carpet underneath my mat, then your shins usually make pretty good contact with the floor. In fact, one way of improving the connection between the shins and the floor is, if you've got a hard floor, is to put a blanket underneath your legs so that it makes it a softer connection and your shins make more contact. If you've got a hard floor, then maybe you have to work a little bit harder to press the shins into the floor. But regardless of how the floor is for you, try and press the bottoms of the shins into the floor, and then the lower thigh really comes to life. Like, you really stretch it a little bit like the sirvasana stretch. So press the bottoms of the shins really consciously into the floor, so that the whole of the shin makes contact with the floor, and then elevate the chest upwards, really elevating the spine upwards, almost like the upper body wants to leave the lower body behind. Take a deep inhalation and then come forward, aiming to keep the seat bones in contact with the heels, pressing the palms into the floor. Just feel how because the weather is warmer, maybe your body feels different. Maybe it feels more almost immediately limber. Maybe not, but just observe if there is any difference in how your body feels. Keep the chest lifted as you come down. Spread the fingers, spread the palms. Keep the head lifted. So try and draw the front chest upwards, that conveyor belt action of the torso, lifting of the chest and the descending of the back chest. And then bring the forehead down. When you bring your head down, don't let that be the full stop of the pose. Feel that as you come down and bring the head down, then you can then work more sensitively in the tailbone region, drawing it down towards the heels. You can work with more awareness in the arms and the armpit, just lengthening the arms away, observing how the palm skin makes contact with the mat. Try and press out any air underneath the palms of the hands, and then squeeze the outer elbows in. Listening in through the breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the sound of the breath. Come up onto your knees, your hands as wide apart as the mat, spreading the fingers, spreading the palms, and then just come up into Adho Mukha Svanasana. Just observe how your body is feeling this morning. Observe how the physical body responds to the pose, whether there is that feeling sometimes when you come into dog down of kind of almost instant release and a feeling of freedom, or alternatively there might be an immediate sense of resistance. So whichever it is, embrace it, enjoy it, whichever it is, even the resistance, and then go back to the breath and allow the breath to override the resistance, pushing your out breath into areas of resistance, drawing your attention into areas of dullness rather than resistance, pushing your out breath into areas of dullness, pushing your out breath into, so your in breath into areas of resistance. So full body inhalations, like you're inflating a lilo. Step your feet forward, just come up into a standing position, and then get some blocks for your hands, half uttanasana, and then bring your feet as wide apart as your mat. So your feet as wide apart as the mat, the outside edge of the foot in line with the mat so that the toes are turning inwards, closer together than your heels. So your hands on your hips, and lift your chest upwards and raise your arms upwards. Just again observe how when your body is already warm and already hot, then there's a difference in the feeling of your energy. Just breathe into the physical body as you would normally. Hinge at the hips, come forwards, hinging at the hips, keeping the arms lifted, keeping the head lifted, and then just reach down beyond the fingertips with the blocks, having the hands underneath your shoulders. Just spend a moment Assessing the action of the legs. Can you make the backs of the thighs lift from the back of the knee all the way up towards the seat bones, lifting the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs? Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the backs of the thighs broaden outwards and up towards the seat bones. Extend the chin and the chest forward. So we're working for a flat back initially. I say initially, we're working, that's our initial action, and we want to keep that throughout. If you can come down lower, then activating those legs, working the kneecaps firmly into the backs of the knees, lifting the seat bones, projecting the chin and the chest forward. Just come into whichever stage of the pose, if you can reach the floor, whichever stage of the pose feels right for you. Being cautious if you've got back problems, so just stay with the blocks if you've got issues with your back. When you come down to the floor, if you have come down to the floor, and just spend a little time hitting the legs towards the back of the room, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. Feel that you can grow out of the skin. If you can go down lower, keep the front chest lifted. Keep the chin directing towards the floor. Bring your hands around the backs of your ankles. Just stay at whichever stage is right for your back. Otherwise, holding onto your ankles, drawing the chest through the legs, but keeping the head lifted. Don't try and reach the goal with your head. Reach the goal with your heart area. Breathing evenly and deeply. Feeling the backs of the legs really broadening, open. And then bring your hands back down into half uttanasana, extending the chin and the chest away. And then bring your hands into your hips and then come up into tadasana. Just come into tadasana, inner edge of the feet together. Lifting the chest up to the ceiling, lengthening the arms down to the floor. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Just observe how the breath feels. So when it's warm, we don't have a lot of it in this country, do we? But when it is warm, we have to ensure that throughout our practice, we maintain our breathing. Bring your arms out nice and wide, in towards the chest, and then step or jump the feet apart, turn the left toes in, the right leg and foot all the way out, and face in the front. Working that back leg evenly with the right leg, and then down into trikonasana, look up. So just have a quick look down as your head over your foot. Can you turn the chest up to face the ceiling? Can you look up? Observe how just this action helps to clear breathing in the sinuses. So keeping both legs rod straight, keeping the kneecaps drawing through to the backs of the knees. Keeping that back leg really firm so that you stamp that back leg into the floor rather than just let it go idle. Stamp that back leg into the floor so that you can then lift up into the chest. turn the chest more effectively. Using that back leg as a fulcrum. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, left leg and foot all the way out, and then face in the front. Keeping this back leg really, really firm, tightening the kneecap, pushing into that back leg as you come down. And then reach down and find the leg. Keep that back leg really firm. Turn the chest up to face the ceiling, look up. Just listening to the breath. Just look down, just make sure that your head is over your foot. Turning the chest, keeping that back leg really firm. And then reach up and back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then just step or jump your feet back together. So we're going to go into ardha chandrasana. So I just need to move my mat a bit because my reduced ceiling height makes this a tricky one. So ardha chandrasana is a balance. You can always do this with your back against the wall if you prefer, but if you do it against the wall, then don't jump your legs apart because you'll bang your head, step your feet apart instead. So just come into tadasana, just lift up into your chest, spreading the toes. Bring your arms out nice and wide, in towards the chest, and then again, step the feet nice and wide, turn the left toes in, the right leg and foot all the way out. So turning that thigh, and then really, again, focus on that back leg, because in a moment, this back leg is going to be in the air and we're going to be balancing. So this back leg needs to maintain its stability. So really firm up that back leg and then keep firming up that back leg as you come down into trikonasana. So maybe the second time you come into trikonasana, it feels different. Maybe it feels freer. But work deeply into that back leg. Now, if gravity was different, then the right leg would be pressing into the floor. This left leg would be up in the air. So firm up this left leg, because that left leg gives you extension into the spine, gives you extension into the spine. So it's the back leg that's really, really important in trikonasana. So really activate that back leg, bring the top hand onto your hip, bend the front leg, and then hop in. You might have to bend the knee to do that. So you either, if you can't reach the floor, you can have a block underneath your hand. I prefer the floor though. Have your hand on the little toe side of your foot, about a foot away from your foot. And at this stage, just turn the chest to face the front, because it will want to kind of drop down to the floor. So bring the chest to face the front, keep that back leg straight, and then see if you can straighten the standing leg, keeping that back leg firm like it was in just straightforward trikonasana. Turn the top shoulder towards the back of the room and keep your hand on your hip, or you can reach up. Breathe evenly, turn in the chest. If you want, you can look up, but look forwards or look up. But keep that back leg firm. It brings real stability into the pose. Just imagine that your legs are on the floor and you've got to really work that back leg. Okay, bend the leg, come down into trikonasana. And then reach up with the top hand, come back to the center and bring the feet parallel. Turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out, and then come down into trikonasana. So again, just feel like this back leg, the right leg this time, is pressing into the floor, tightening the kneecap, lengthening into the spine, looking up. Breathing evenly. Bring the top hand onto the hip. Bend that front leg, hop in, bring the hand onto the little toe side of the foot. Keep that back leg straight before you lift it. And then lift that back leg. But work it like you're still standing on the floor. Turn the chest to face the front. Turn the top shoulder to the back of the room. But keeping that back leg really firm. Breathing evenly. So the more you work that back leg, the more secure your balance will feel. Okay, and then come down into trikonasana. So you do a really good trikonasana after ardha chandrasana. And then reach up, come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together, and then come into tadasana. So just feel the energy in your legs. Just come down onto the floor, come onto your front. Have your fingertips underneath your shoulders. Turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Resist the temptation to walk your feet towards your head. You let your hands, or vice versa. If you're out of line, then just adjust, but stay wide. So by wide, I mean feet away from the hands. Stay shoulder width and hip width apart with the arms and the feet. Just take deep inhalations, deep exhalations. Feed the body with breath energy, full body inhalations. Holding you too long in the pose, then release. Just going to Adho Mukha Virasana, but if you can stay and maintain for a little longer, then do. Just feel how every muscle of the body is engaged. Just spend a little time to observe that action. And then come down onto your knees. And then just sit back on your heels. Just spend a moment just to observe your energy. Palms facing upwards. Just spend a little time just listening to the breath. Okay, and then just sit yourself directly onto the floor and then stretch your legs away. So just extend your legs away and then just roll over, move the buttock flesh out to the side. If you've got a belt handy, then grab that. If you've got a couple of blocks handy, then grab those as well. So just stretch your legs out And then have the hands at the sides of the hips, extending into the legs, lifting up into the chest. Really activating the kneecaps down into the floor. Have the inner edge of the feet together if you can, at least the big toes together. The heels might separate because you turn the legs inwards. Just breathe evenly, lifting up into the chest. Sit on a lift if you struggle to lift your chest. And then bring your legs wide. So for upavistha konasana. Now, if at this stage you discover that you kind of roll onto the back of your seat bones, then get yourself a blanket, just fold it over and sit on the blanket so that you've got a little extra lift underneath your seat bones. Just roll over, move the buttock flesh back and out to the side so that you're sitting right on the tops of the seat bones, and then activate your legs and tadasana-rise. Your legs, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Just got to get a couple of blocks in front of you and then press them into the floor so that you can lift the chest. So press your hands down onto the blocks so that you can elevate the spine up towards the ceiling. So if you've got a bad back, just stay at this stage. Pressing down onto the blocks to elevate the spine. If there's no problem with your back, or if you are confident in your back, then you can come forwards a little. Just keep the hands pressing onto the blocks, lifting up into the chest. Try and roll onto the front edge of the seat bones. Come forwards a little more if you can, rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones, but at the same time trying to keep the tailbone just lengthening down towards the floor. So lifting up into the chest. If you can come forward a little more, then do, so that the body becomes parallel to the floor. So just lifting up into the chest. So good forward bending action. Breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. And then just walk your hands back to the center, and then get your hands into the backs of the knees, and then draw the feet in towards the body. Hold onto the big toes. So use the index finger and the middle finger, kind of hook in the big toe, and then the thumb wraps around the outside of the big toe. So it's padangusthasana hold. Press the feet into the floor. Try and roll onto the fronts of the seat bones like you were doing in upavistha konasana. So again, if you've got a bad back, just stay at this stage. Otherwise, just hinging entirely at the hips. Just see if you can come forwards a little. Keeping the back straight, keeping the shoulder blades drawing forwards. Just feeling that you're hinging at the hips. Maybe you can get your elbows into your inner thighs, encouraging those inner thighs to stretch out into the inner knees. If you can let go and reach forwards. So baddha konasana as a forward bend. Just observe your own stretch. Observe how it feels, and just work with how it feels. Remember ahimsa, that sense of that concept of non-violence, coming back to the center. So we don't do our yoga to punish the body like you see in gyms where people are lifting weights and they're kind of really appear to be kind of giving themselves some proper punishment. Yoga should never be like that. It should be a positive sensation, even if there's deep extension. But we should always work with a sense of non-violence within our practice. That's non-violence towards ourselves. Just come into cross legs. Let's just have a little wriggle in the hips. We've really opened up the hip region. Just have a little wriggle. Just feel how we have opened up the hips. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest. Draw your chin down to meet your chest in Jalandhara Bandha. Incorporate Mula Bandha by lifting the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. Just spend a little time with full body inhalations, filling the lungs and overflowing into the chest and into the arms and into the legs. Bringing energy into the physical body. Just inflating the body with positive energy from the breath. Just filling the body with breath energy. And then release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha, and then raise your head. Just observe the energy that you have brought into the physical body. And then get a block for either side of your hips for sukhasana. Holding onto your knees and then reach underneath the right knee and then bring the right elbow down onto the block. You could go all the way down onto the floor, but we want to keep this left seat bone really firmly down, and the lower down you go, the more this seat bone will want to lift. So push your elbow really firmly into the floor and almost push it away from the right hip, so that then you can lengthen from that right elbow into that left hip. So you really bring that left hip down firmly, and then turn the chest, pushing the right elbow away from the right hip, so that you can keep that left seat bone down really firmly, and then lift up into the arm, look underneath the armpit like you would in Parshvakonasana, and then extend over, keeping that lifted arm straight. So the more you can plant down that left seat bone, the more stretch you get in the latimus dorsi region of the torso. So really extend into that left seat bone. Extending into the fingertips. And then come back to the center. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, using the energy of the bandhas, the breathing in the bandhas, is to lift out of the body. And then reach underneath the left knee with the left hand. Bring the left elbow down onto the block. Push that elbow really firmly into the block. Push it away from the left hip so that you can bring that right hip really firmly down, turning the chest, pushing that right hip really firmly down into the floor, and then reach up and over, pushing that left elbow into the floor away from the left hip so that you can lengthen that right buttock bone away from that left elbow so it stays down. Okay, and then just gently come back to the center. Hold onto your knees and just feel that you can elevate the spine upwards. There's lightness within the spine. And then come down onto the floor. And get hold of the sides of the mat with your hands at the sides of the hips. So just laying down on the floor, holding onto the sides of the mat like you want to tear the sides of the mat apart. So really firmly holding the mat. Turn the crease of the elbows to face the ceiling so that you broaden in the collarbone. Then keeping that grip really firm in the arms, raise the legs, bending the knees, then raise the legs for viparita karanhi. So the more you work the upper body in this pose, the lighter the legs become. If you struggle to lift your legs, you can put a block underneath your tailbone region, sacrum area. But see if you can just really activate the upper body. Pulling on the belt, on the mat. Turning the crease of the elbows to face the ceiling. And then just let the legs elevate of their own accord. Breathing evenly and deeply. Okay, and then just bend your knees. Bring your feet back down onto the floor. Get a blanket folded blanket for underneath your head. And then just give yourself that little pillow. Take your glasses off if you're wearing them. Just move any equipment that's around the sides of the room out of the way if you can. Just have a quick look. Make sure you're in a really good straight line along the floor. And then you will be able to relax. Just allow the body to release into the floor. Long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Just unhooking the muscles of the arms and the legs, allowing your physical body to release into the floor. As you release the physical body, observe the energy that flows through the limbs. Just feeling the lightness of energy radiating out from the bones into the muscle, into the flesh, and into the skin. Basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. Okay, when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers, and then draw your knees in towards your chest. So a little grounding massage on your spine, just bringing your consciousness back into the physical body and into the room. And then gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in Namaste, just a final spinal lift. Draw your breath in through your nose and down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you've released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside, and then radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. So hopefully you have really lifted your energy, given yourself a good sense of lightness that you can bring into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.